Okay, our speaker for the first session is our one and only technical advisor, mental health and psychosocial support, Okeowo Olumide, and he'll be speaking on the topic, push factors of domestic violence. Olumide has a certificate in people analytics from Wharton Business School, University of Pennsylvania, USA, MSc Clinical Psychology from the University of Ibadan, and BSc Psychology from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Nigeria. A certified MBTI practitioner, a mentor, a volunteer, facilitator for Faith Foundation, and certified addiction treatment specialist. He is also a senior professional in Human Resources International. With over 18 years working experience, Olumide has over the last 5 focused on mental health practice with clinical experience covering child and adolescents and adults in neuropsychiatry and substance abuse, using evidence-based interventions, including psychotherapy programs, motivational interviewing program, relapse prevention strategies. He also has deep competence in management consulting, covering human resource management, team development, organizational design and development, performance management and competence development, and customer service excellence. Olumide is currently a clinical psychologist with the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, and also consults in his after-work hours on employee-assisted programs, leadership development, talent management, team development, and people analytics. He left Health Plus as the head of human resources after his position in KPMG, Nigeria, as the head of recruitment and business partnering. He has also worked with the telecoms vendor giant LM Ericsson and other HR consulting firms, Kimberly Ryan and HR Index. Olumide has returned to the clinical psychology space to meet the increasing need for mental health, wellness, and performance productivity in corporate Nigeria and in the millennials. Welcome, Mr. Olumide.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we can't wait to enjoy your session.
So I want to share my screen. So where this is the first session today, I believe. So I just want to put up my screen, and this is what we will be looking at. So we're looking at the push factors for domestic violence. Thank you, Lady Moderator, for the profile that you read. Well, my name is pronounced Olumide Okeowo. Okay, so just to put that out there, and I currently work as a clinical psychologist at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, and so basically I've left the corporate world, and then I'm here in the clinical space. So I know I have the experience of both spaces, so clinically and then in the corporate world. So we're focusing a lot more in the clinical space, as it were, even though it's going to affect Oh, someone is saying the sound is bad. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, sir,
Is the
but it's
sound better
cracking.
now?
No, it's the same. It sounds the same.
It's still cracking.
I think it's better now.
Is the sound still cracking?
A bit, but it's better.
Okay. All right. So let's just go into what we have. Okay. So today is World Mental Health Day. I had the lady moderator talking about that today is a World Mental Health Day. So I thought to highlight that first of all, that so part of the question she was asking the audience, the people that were in the audience that had come in, about what they are doing on World Mental Health Day. So today is a day to create awareness about how our mental health, how what we do with our mental health. So basically, your mental health talks about the area of how you think, how you show emotions, how you interact with other people, how you relate in your community. So, and that involves a lot of things. So, so as we go along celebrating our mental health, so it's a day that you can put a bit of focus on how you have been able to relax and all of that, and then share your day by relaxing or talking to someone or making somebody feel better in their skin. Today, the theme for this mental health day 2022 is focusing on mental health and mental wellness for all, and making it a priority. So that's it. So I just thought to highlight that. So basically, I will be talking about push factors for domestic violence. So we're doing a lot of, I'm going to be doing a lot of talking around domestic violence, and then these are the outline for the session. There are going to be a lot of definitions, why and what for domestic violence, why, meaning factors that are influencing domestic violence against women, which are the larger population of people that face domestic violence. Yes, men also have been indicated to face domestic violence, but the percentage is minimal compared to women, and then maybe children, particularly girls. And what will be consequences of domestic violence, and then some intervention, and then we'll conclude on that. So basically, what I would want to start with is just to tell us a story. So that there is this story about, it's a real life story. It's something that happened, and then there was a man that accused his wife of having an affair with his father. Then, it was in the news. And then, while she was asleep on the matrimonial bed one night, he put on the electric iron as if he was going to iron clothes at about 11 p.m. while the wife was fast asleep on the bed. Then, he just, the hot iron, placed it on her back. And then, the shock and the pain that comes with that made the woman wake up. And then as she turned to see who the assailant was, who was doing this dastardly act to her. As she turned, the husband put the hot iron on her chest, and then which led to her death. And trying to struggle and all of that with her husband, seeing that the act that he was carrying out was something very dangerous and all of that. And then in the process, the husband killed the wife. The wife died in the hands of her husband of 16 years, all because of what he has accused her of, that she was having an affair with his father. And then that takes us to define what we really mean by domestic violence. And then what I have just said in terms of defining domestic violence, you see that it's a pattern of assaultive and coercive behavior. Assaultive, if you think again about what the man has done to his wife, he assaulted her. And then, a physical assault. So the part of the definition talks about a pattern of assaultive or coercive behavior, which includes physical, sexual, psychological attacks. And it can be economical coercion towards the other person, and is used by adults or adolescents against family members, and mostly common, with their current or former intimate partners. So domestic violence, in terms of defining it, it's a pattern of assaultive behavior that can be physical, it can be sexual, it can be psychological attacks, which means emotional. That is even stronger in terms of the effect than physical or sexual. The psychological, emotional attacks can be very, very deep and can cause a lot of damage. And so this is what we are talking about today, domestic violence. And then if you look at the definition in line with what I have just mentioned, the story that I talked about, you will see that it kind of fits this definition that I've put forward in the way that definition is. Now, so if you want to look at domestic violence, like I mentioned at the beginning, there are a lot of this happening against women and girls. And I just decided to focus on Nigeria and to see some of the statistics that there are out there that shows that domestic violence, sexual, gender-based violence, it's a very major public health problem, and of course, it violates the rights of a woman. So you have 1 in 3 of women worldwide that have experienced either physical or sexual, intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence in their lifetime. That's these are statistics that the World Health Organization had put out. And in Nigeria, there is this belief that to hit a woman is a form of discipline. I don't know how that becomes a form of discipline, to hit a woman. But that's the belief. And so that's why we're looking at it. And then, this is not in any way, from what statistics shows, that the tempo or the way this thing is going is reducing in our society. So a recent study not as recent as you would think, but it's some of the data that is out there that in 2011, 21% is what is being the percentage that was shown to be the rate of domestic violence. And by 2023, it had gone up to 30%. I dare say that it would have gone a bit much higher in 2022, where we are now. So this is just to show you how much of violence, domestic violence, and the way women are being, pushed in this direction and being attacked in this direction. So we go further to just even to put some cultural perspective into it, or so ethnic groups and religion in Nigeria, we run a patriarchal structure, and then which justifies domestic violence, like the belief that to hit a woman is a form of discipline. That definitely does not sound right, and it is not right. But these are the information and the statistic that you have. So, for instance, a study done in Ilorin some time back shows that a large number of women reported their abuse, the abuser they reported their abuse to family and friends, while not many decided to go to the police to file a report. Why? The rationale behind not going to the police for is various. There are so many reasons, such as fear of victim blaming, acceptance of violence as a proper action, and the lack of police action. So over time, women had found out that when they report, or they have experienced the fact that when they report, a lot of the reports no action has been taken. Say, for instance, they go to the police to report, no action has been taken, and then because of the society believes that that the woman should be subjected to whatever her husband is saying, which is the idea of the male dominated society, and that is the kind of society we live in Nigeria. So, and one of the major things that is also making this domestic violence something that is very prevalent is that a lot of women don't report. They don't report what is going on in terms of the domestic violence. They don't report it. So that has in a way sustained it. So this is a statement from someone, a woman that was interviewed in Peru. So this is a content that I took from one of a research that was done, or a presentation that was done by a lady that made a presentation at an UN event. So it says, so I take a blanket and I spend the night with my children out in the cold because he's hitting me too much. I have to take the kids to stop him hitting them too. I would go out in the field and sleep there all night. I have done this for more than 10 times. I'm sure that is heart-wrenching to think that this woman would go all the way out, would have to leave a home that is comfortable and have to go into the field just to move away from being, attacked or being molested by, her husband. So that's the type of thing that we're trying, or we're discussing this afternoon. And then, so what this abusive behavior, what are the different types that you would find? There are lots of, forms of abusive behavior, but let me highlight the ones that, they're generally out there. And of course, I've mentioned some of it: physical abuse, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, use of economics. So use of economics would mean that in the situation where the man is the provider and is using that power of having to provide for the family to attack his wife by not maybe paying bills, by not maybe providing money for upkeep, by not making sure that money is available for what is needed in the home. So all of those things are things that will constitute use of economics. And then also use of children to control another victim. So maybe by, so in a situation where the abuse has led to separation and all of that, and then maybe the father has the custody, and then denying the woman the opportunity to see the children. So those are some of the ways these abusive behaviors are being perpetrated. So, and then, so we will just look at some of the examples that come with each of this type of abuse that we're talking about before we get to some of the things that are influencing this. So let's just take a look at some of the examples of physical abuse. So these are examples that you would see. And then, I've mentioned one in the story that I started with, slapping, shaking, beating with fist or an object, strangulation, kicking, burning, threats with knife or gun. So these are some of the examples you find with physical abuse. These are some of the examples that you will find when people are experiencing physical abuse. So we'll go to the sexual abuse and see some examples as well. So these are some of the examples when the partner is being forced to have sex, and through threats and intimidation, we're being forced using physical force, forcing unwanted sexual acts, forcing sex in front of others. I mean, there are just so many things that can happen when you see sexual abuse, physical abuse. These are some of the things that you would find, and it's very intriguing that it seems to be graduating. When you look at the physical, then you look at the sexual abuse, then you go to the psychological, which is the emotional one, and I think that is even more deep or deadly in terms of the way it presents and some of the effects that it would have on the woman. So these are some of the things that you would find when someone is psychologically abused. Isolation from others. The partner is excessive in being jealous. You want to have control over all the woman's activity, verbal aggression, intimidation through destruction of property, so many things, stalking, threats of violence. So these are some of the examples that you would find when we're talking about psychological abuse, and you can just imagine the impact that this will do to a woman or to a young lady, that you know, when you do all of these things are very detrimental to the individual's mental health. All those things have their impact on the way the mental health of an individual, particularly the woman, is affected. So you can see what we're talking about in terms of, and then, and the last one is something that, I hesitated before bringing that up, constantly belittling and humiliating the woman. It's something that can affect the whole of our emotions, the whole of our well-being, in terms of talking about this kind of abuse. So this is what we're talking about when we say domestic violence, when we talk about abuse and the kind of assaultive behavior that is being exhibited or used against the woman or the girl. Okay, so let's go on. So I had already talked about this a bit while I was trying to introduce what it means to use economy to abuse the woman. Sorry. So yes. So withholding funds, it can also come in the form of, you can imagine, where the husband and the wife have a joint account, and then they're supposed to, agree before the funds are being spent. And then you see that the partner, the man, goes to get all the funds or majority of the funds and spends it without the knowledge of, that's an abuse, because the condition for having that kind of account was so that both parties would agree, and then based on that agreement, that decision is being taken. So you can also find that a situation where the man is not contributing financially to the family, and then making a lot of demands, and then controlling the victim's access to healthcare, employment, and all of that. So these are ways the use of the economy to abuse the partner, particularly the woman. So like I said when I started, that it's possible that some men can also be abused. It can also be the other way, that is the woman that is abusing the man. But statistics that has been does not show that to be a large percentage. It's a very minimal percentage. So majority of the domestic violence or all the forms of abuse that we have looked at here, it's towards the woman. Okay, so we will just move on with that. And then there is the abuse of using children to control an adult victim. So these are some of the things that you would find. Like I mentioned, physical and sexual abuse of children, hostage taking of children, custody battles. I talked about that earlier on. Using children to monitor the adult victims. So that can happen. So all these things are the different forms of abuse that you would find. And then how these are some of the examples of how this presents in the real situation. So this is just how common physical or sexual abuse in women's life has been. This is a World Health Organization. I don't know how clearly you can see. And then you can see, percentages as high as 79 or 75% in some communities across, the globe. So that tells you this is something that it's a major public health concern. And so what we're doing today is also creating awareness putting some light in this direction, as that this, if we put a lot of effort in this direction, this also would help. It would begin to move or push us in the direction where we are, moving away from this dastardly act of violence against women. Okay, so how common is this, partner violence? So research has also shown that there other synonyms for domestic violence will be intimate partner violence. So that's why you are having this slide, that I put up, that is showing how common is partner violence. And see the statistics in most sites, 4 out of 5 women who have been abused by anybody, partner and others, reported being abused by a partner. So it can be in a confiding relationship. That means maybe a marital relationship. It can just be that maybe people that are living together, not being in a marital relationship, and all of that can be that kind of a partner. And then the next one says so in Japan and in Ethiopia, between 15 and 71 of ever partnered woman experienced physical or sexual abuse by an intimate partner. So this is also a World Health Organization study. And so this just further helps us to understand that there are a lot of this going on. And then as we put the searchlight to it and then try to continue to, because there are a lot of organizations, including this organization, EWEI, that where this conference is going on right now. That is the advocacy that is going out there. And this is part of what we want to talk about. This is part of what we want to put out there for people to get sensitized towards, not following the pattern that is already on ground, but to see how we can move away from these violent acts towards women. So these are, so even in a state of being pregnant, the woman is also still being abused. Some statistics also show that 4 to 12% of women who had been pregnant were beaten during a pregnancy. And then the abuser, 100% of the cases, the abuser is the father of the unborn child. How intriguing can that be? That you are the one that is the father of the unborn child, and then you are beating the mother of the unborn child while carrying the unborn child. That is not a nice to hear statistic. Okay, so these are statistics that that are mind-boggling, I dare say. So, and you can. So this is another, like someone talking about our experience. And then, what we also want to, what I also want to talk about, just to add to what we have just been saying about physical, mental, psychological, sexual abuse that is going on, that you can link the physical abuse and the sexual abuse to the emotional trauma that the woman will go through. Because you can't imagine that someone that is being kicked in the tummy, or like the example that, the story that I started with, placing a hot iron on somebody that is fast asleep. That is evil, and then that can break that person down emotionally. It can, cause a mental health challenge for that individual. So that is what we are saying here. So what are some of the things that are causing the domestic violence? I beg your pardon. What are some of the reasons why these things happen? What are the consequences? Why? Why are these things happening? What are the things influencing domestic violence? So that's the why and the what. So let's see some of the why this domestic violence happen. Okay, the what is coming first. So these are some of the consequences. And now when you talk about consequences, yeah, I can see that Hamad Zachary is mentioning some of the reasons of the consequences. We will get to some of the reasons why they happen in a bit, and then you can just throw in your comments, as you know, like Hamad Zachary just mentioned poverty. So if you have, you can also throw in the reason before we get to some of the reasons why this happened. This is happening. I can see that there is, excuse me, these are the consequences. These are some of the consequences that you will see. It can lead to that person that is being abused to commit suicide. It can lead to death, which can then become homicide. Then you look at non-fatal outcomes, which can be physical, mental, things like reproductive health. Yes, Sachs is saying that it can lead to depression. Fantastic. You are. I mean, that is a very strong point, and that is already affecting the mental health of that individual. So it's also mentioned, depression. It can lead to. I mean, when you are talking about sexual abuse, it can lead to having sexually transmitted diseases. Some of the things that you would find when you even talk about emotional or mental, you see that irritable bowel syndrome, people begin to develop some of these illnesses or some of these symptoms that they do not have. You have some people having gynecological disorders, and so there's so many dimensions that these things can come. Now, so these are other consequences that you find for this kind of violence. Yeah, Jeremiah Samuel is also talking about post-traumatic stress disorder that can happen. That's that in the space of mental health, there are a lot of things that can happen with what we're talking about now. So so these are some of the things that can consequences of this domestic violence, financial status, in terms of when you have crippled the ability of the woman to work, and then you are depriving her of making provision from it. Of course, financial status is put in jeopardy. Ability to work, ability to function, to participate in the society. There are a lot of things that can happen. And to the children, it can be something that can happen, that can affect emotional well-being, behavioral difficulties. Imagine a boy or girl that sees the parents, or see the mother being abused all of the time, or hear that verbal aggression and all of that every time. It can begin to affect their emotional well-being, and then it can make them also become cantankerous. It can make them become very difficult in their behavior. When at school, they become problematic in school. They fight, they do all sorts of things, try to bully other children. So this has great impact in different directions, as you can imagine. And then domestic violence is not something that is innate. It's not something that you someone comes with when you are being born. You have, the opportunity of coming with that kind of behavior. It's not. It's something that is learned. It's something that is learned. It's a behavior that is learned. And let's see how, this is learned. Is a learned behavior, and this can happen through observation. So you imagine that that young guy that is seeing a lot of violence being perpetrated by his or her dad is observing, and most likely would come out to be that kind of person that will exhibit that violent behavior because he has seen or she has seen one too many of that kind of behavior. It can be through personal experience, that the person that has been violated, that has been assaulted, now turns out to be the one assaulting other people. So, I can speak to that because I've, based on my clinical experience, been opportune to speak with a young lady that was talking about how she also has started abusing other younger children sexually because of the experience she had when she was growing up. So that's what we're saying, learn through personal experience. So you can imagine because she didn't know any better. And then after, she realized and all of that, she came in to seek help in one of the clinics that I work, that I used to work or consult with. And so it can be learned in culture. It can also be learned in family. That's what I've been trying to talk about in a situation where you have that violence being exhibited by the father towards the mother, and the child, the children are seeing this day in, day out through their growing up years. And then when they become, young adults or adults, they don't know how to respond to situations. They don't know how to manage conflict. And the way they present themselves when, they are in a conflicting situation is to abuse. Okay, so so the way that domestic violence, this behavior is learned, it can also be unlearned. And at times the unlearning can be difficult because it might take a process of having to go through therapy. It might take a process of having to do a lot of work to get that person back into the right frame of mind, or to behave in a certain way within the community. Imagine, he's learned in communities, schools, friends. So he's still alluding to what I've mentioned earlier, because, some people have been exposed to that, and when they go to school, they exhibit such kind of behavior, and then maybe their friends pick it and all of that. So that's where the point about peer pressure comes in. So thank you all for your comment. Keep it coming. And if you can begin to put your thoughts together in terms of what you want to talk about when we start to talk in terms of comments or questions. If you, by the time you want to ask questions, for you to be able to ask questions. So apart from, domestic violence, violence against women, intimate partner violence, and the different dimension that this kind of violence comes in. Some people would want to claim that, okay, it is because of these certain reasons why I'm going to put up now. that these are some of the reasons. But I just want to make it clear that yes, some of these reasons that I'm going to put up can aggravate the situation, but they are not the cause. The cause is what we have looked in the previous slide, that it's a learned behavior. So these are some of the reasons that can aggravate some of this, but not that they are the cause. Okay, so you have illness. Someone might be ill and then become frustrated at their illness, and can result into some form of domestic violence against their partner. Hereditary. Some people inherited some of this kinds of behavior that they've seen, they've experienced, and all of that, and that can come. So you can't say it is hereditary. It is something that you have learned, and then maybe the nature that you have experienced, maybe based on your parents, then you can then it can aggravate it, but not the cause. It's not caused by any form of illness. So some people will say that, it's because of a certain illness. That's to know. What we're saying is that yes, illness may aggravate it, maybe when the person is in a state of illness, maybe some frustration and all of that but not that is the illness that is causing it. Use of substances can aggravate, because when that person is in a state of euphoria, and they can become aggressive. Lack of self-control, economic problems. But when the economic problems, we should try to look for other ways of trying to solve the problem, trying to get empowered in other areas that can help to bring that side of thing to a place where you are able to even survive. Okay, so anger and stress, anger and stress, these are some other things that can, instead of using whatever it is that you're going through to attack the other person, or maybe when you are someone that is coming from, maybe the man is coming from work, and then it's been a bad day at work, and then you come home and then pour out all the anger, the one that you cannot, display towards your colleague or towards your boss, then you come home and display and pour all of that on your partner. So don't say that is you are supposed to be able to handle or learn coping or stress mechanisms that can help you in this kind of situation. So these are things that that can cause a lot of all this. So let's move on quickly. So just to validate what I said before. So this is from a study that was done in Serbia long ago. It says boys growing up in families where father is violent are 3 times more likely to become perpetrators of partner violence when they are in their adulthood. And I don't think that is only that only applies to Serbia, even though that study was done in Serbia. I mean, it cuts across every part of the globe where there is domestic violence. This is something that can happen. This has been happening. So let's take note that violence or domestic violence is not something that is innate. It's not something that you come with when you were being born. It's something that you learn. So it would be nice to unlearn such behavior. Now, so let's go to factors that can, the why. Now we are the why of why domestic violence, factors that influence this domestic violence. So one of the major ones that has been very noticed and research has shown is when the woman is earning more income. So there is inequality in the relationship. The ego of the man is bruised, where he is not able to manage, that situation that the woman is earning more. That he's not able to manage the fact that the woman is earning more, and so it can lead to violence. It can lead to domestic violence. The other one is about the age difference. You have gone to marry someone that is a lot younger than you are, then you now bring the culture game and say that, oh, okay, you should respect me. You should. I mean, you don't demand respect. It's when you are able to do all the things, the respect will come naturally. You are able to provide for your family. You are able to. I mean, the good book, the Bible says that the man that is not able to feed his family is worse than an infidel. So, I mean, so if you want to command respect and all of that, and then you have gone to marry someone that is a lot younger than you are. I mean, there's something that you have seen in her for you to have gone that way. But this is one of the factors that has been found to affect or to influence the reason why people do abuse. Unemployment. When there is no employment, the man is not employed, is not busy doing something, it can lead to that's when you see everything that is happening in the house, everything that is going wrong, any little things that you should not even notice, you will begin to notice them, and it can then lead to violence. Substance abuse, when there's a lot of use of cannabis or different kinds of illicit drugs, and then the person is not in the right thinking position, concentration is gone, decision-making ability is lowered, and all of that, and it can lead to domestic violence. Low socioeconomic status, and then infertility also has been found, and then this is not only by the person, the people that are maybe the woman and her husband. It's found that maybe in the places where the woman is seeking fertility treatment, that some form of abuse also do occur in such environment. So these are things that we need to be aware of. And then this we have mentioned in terms of the way the society, different society across the world sees the woman. So violence against the woman is also a product of gender subordination, where the norms are that men are entitled, and then the ownership of women. So that comes with, especially in the African cultures where you have dowry being paid or dowry being given at the time when the man is getting married to the woman. They believe that, the dowry is some money that you have paid to purchase a woman. I mean, so that is a wrong belief. But these are things that have made gender subordination very real. These are, things that have been highlighted here. We've mentioned some of it: male control of the wealth in the family, decision making, and all of that. So these are things that we have mentioned, and these are things that would also engender violence. Okay, so this is what I just mentioned. In the developing world, wife beating is seen as a form of correction. That is, a culture that needs to be changed. And so these are the cultural differences and things that come with that. So still in that line, still in that light, beating as a discipline, this is what we have mentioned. I've mentioned that before. And now, so let's quickly talk about the different things that can be done to help the cause of reducing domestic violence against women. Government policies. The government policies should be very, how do I put it now? They should be enforced. I know the sexual and gender violent laws or bills that have been passed in Lagos State in Nigeria. Lagos State particularly is doing very strongly in Nigeria concerning domestic violence, sexual violence. And then there are lots of other states, and then it's just more effort needs to be put in this direction. More effort needs to be put in this direction to ensure that, a lot of these things are being enforced. And when such situations or such incidences are found, that the full weight of the law should be applied. The full weight of the law should be applied. Awareness campaigns like what we're having now, the session that we're having, and then for victims, people that have experienced domestic violence, counseling, psychological support will go a long way to help them begin to recover in terms of their physical, emotional well-being. I mean, substance abuse, what we're saying is also to focus. I don't know what substance abuse is doing here. So these are not supposed to be here. I beg your pardon. But in a way, if I can flip it around, to take care of substance abuse right now, it's a major problem that is ongoing, and then walking around, taking care of those things, that are pushing people to go to substance abuse and all of that, creating more employment, making sure that people are living within a considerable way within the society would curb, the menace of substance abuse. Right now, substance abuse is a huge problem. And then, if that is being looked in terms of curbing it, it will go a long way to making sure domestic violence does not thrive. The economic situation, which is a lot of work, not only governments, even for social organizations, non-governmental organizations, and a lot of things are going on, skill acquisition, people to get empowered. The man should, it's not only the blue-collar jobs or the white-collar jobs, as it were, that can sustain. If you're able to look towards other means of being empowered, and will reduce the level of violence that is being perpetrated. So I would want to take us through just something to help us understand the framework of how violence is being perpetrated. It comes, from the individual. So the individual, like we have been mentioning, that I've been talking about, is when the individual has been exposed to violence, has seen a lot of domestic violence while growing up and all of that. It can be something that that person would also do when they grow up, which research has shown. Also, and then when that kind of individual goes into a relationship, like a confiding relationship like marriage and all of that, it can begin to make that violence become a behavior that will be exhibited within that relationship. And that will go into the community. In that community, like we mentioned, it can, from that individual to that kind of relationship, those kind of things can happen in the community, in the schools, in social clubs and all of that. It can begin to spread like that. Those kind of violence would be individual or people in that person in that relationship, then it goes to the community, then it goes to a bigger society. So you see that if we are not putting a lot of work in this area to make sure that we create awareness, we do a lot in this area, then the problem will persist. The problem will persist, and it will be something that can affect tremendously, particularly the woman and then, the girl child. So I want to plead with us, as as we're listening in and we're doing all of this during the session, like that, we should do a lot more. We should, as we become more aware of what this is, we begin to be an advocate that can also make sure we become a voice. We become a voice to make sure that we are the ones that are propagating the gospel of no domestic violence. So to conclude, I would just like to conclude by saying that with all that I have mentioned, that we have discussed, and the consequences that come with domestic violence is grave. And these consequences are not only physical, they are mental, they can be emotional, they can be psychological, they affect the total being of the woman. They affect, how it affects the children or the child that has been in that kind of situation as well. So I just want to say that if we all do a little in terms of making sure that we become an advocate in this direction, we would also be doing a lot of work in making sure that there is a lot of reduction in how people feel, in their emotions, how people are able to sustain themselves physically, how people, particularly women and the girl child, who are the more vulnerable, we would have done a lot by doing this advocacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Olumide. Indeed, domestic violence is a learned behavior, not inherent. And violence against women is a product of gender subordination. Very true. Thank you so much. Your session was very detailed and enlightening. I learned so much. And I know that our participants have questions, so you can type your question in the chat box and in the question and answer sessions. So our speaker would respond to your questions.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your comments. So I'm still waiting for questions. If you have any questions or even a comment, so you might not have a question, you might have a comment regarding what we have discussed. And like I mentioned at the beginning, today is World Mental Health Day for people that joined later. Part of the reason why we're even this topic, which I believe is apt for a day like this, is we all focus a lot about the physical health. So today is the day to celebrate our mental health. And like for us in the mental health space, we say that there is no health without mental health. Okay, so I can see that there is some questions coming up. What role can women play against domestic violence? Okay. And then what's the case of the second question, the case of ADD marriage? I don't understand that. But let me start with, so I don't begin to miss out on some of the questions. What role can women play against domestic violence? So like one of the things, part of the things that I mentioned was, we looked at the physical, the psychological, we looked at the factors that affects the reason why people are being abused. There is that part. Let me quickly take you back to some of the slides so that I can factors. Yes, I wanted to show factors. So we cannot say that women should not earn more when they have attained that stage where they've gone the work ladder, their career progression, and then so women can also be supportive of their partners. Women can help them because one of the things that I found is also that men find it very difficult to talk, maybe when they're going through financial crisis and all of that. So women can be supported by, I'm sure they would know that, oh, there's a problem. Maybe the bills are not being paid, and then the person used to be able to do that before, to maybe initiate conversations around that to help the man be able to come out and then see how they can be of support to their man. So there's a lot more, also the way that they can also support will be to maybe have family discussions around the planning of the home with their husbands and all of that. So maybe some of the areas where they can help to take away some of the burden. We know that globally, not only in Nigeria, that there are a lot of pressure economically. So, I mean, in that way, they can help to support that way. So that I can see, oh, sorry, I had shut out the slides, but let me quickly go through some of these questions. They're coming, lady moderator, these questions are coming in so many, they're coming now in torrents. So I need your support. Okay, I've seen. I don't understand.
Yes, most definitely.
The
I can read the
question about
questions for you.
uh,
I can read the questions
okay,
for you.
please.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just read the first one. I just took the first one, so you can go ahead.
Okay. Ayo asked, how can we stop domestic violence?
So one of the things that, and like I mentioned in the discussion, that some of these things are things that we need to begin to pay attention to, especially for the men. Saying that, anger, stress management, there are other ways to manage your anger. There are other ways to manage stress. There are proper ways of managing stress. You can learn how to relax, because especially for people living in Lagos like myself and maybe Abuja and very major centers, particularly Lagos, it's still we don't know how to rest. So if you learn how to rest, learn how to manage your stress, learn how to cope with stressors that are coming maybe from work and all of that, and not come back home and pour out all the venom that you have received from not having a good day at work. So there are different ways to manage ourselves. Like I mentioned in one of the slides, saying that these are not the causes. Things like stress, anger, not having no financial stability and all of that. There are other means of trying to make sure that you are able to do some of these things without turning your partner to the victim. So like the story that I shared at the beginning of the man that decided to use a hot iron to press on his wife until she died. I mean, what kind of anger is that? There are other ways to take out your anger, to even in terms of okay, maybe you have accused her of a certain thing. I mean, there are other ways to resolve that than becoming violent, allowing anger to take over your person and then take you. So there are other ways of managing and coping in situations that are not very palatable. So those are what I would advise is learning all those coping mechanisms. So another way not to be able to do that is also not to rely on use of drugs, alcohol, and say that you're using that to take away your sorrows. That will even aggravate, it will make it more, it will make it worse. So those are some of the ways that we can help ourselves to be able to stay away from becoming domestic, to becoming violent domestically.
Okay, we have another question from Joy. What role can women play against domestic violence?
I think I've taken that the first time. I've taken that. Can we take another question?
Okay. Ahmad is asking, what of the case
that's the one I was talking about, being supportive and all of that.
Okay. Joy is asking again, my friend actually likes it when her husband beats her. I see it as a mental problem, but what can I do? What can I do to help her?
So for some people that have experienced abuse and they don't know any other form of ways of coping or any other way that's kind of abuse, they see it as something that is normal. So yes, I agree with the person asking the question. It's already becoming a challenge because the person does not know the right way to respond to that kind of situation. So you can help the person access maybe a psychologist, or someone or a counselor, someone that can help the person to overcome that maladaptive behavior, because if you find out, most likely maybe the person had been exposed to domestic violence while they were growing up. It might not be them, it might not be that individual directly, it might be her mom or someone around her. And then, while growing up, she sees that that's a normal thing, that, okay, you have to be beaten or you have to be hit by, a man for you to feel good, So I believe that person needs to seek help, and then that will help the person maybe overcome that adaptive behavior and begin to see that there are other ways for people to pass across the message or resolve conflict when there are conflicts.
Okay. Jeremiah said, thank you, sir, for your
Okay, we can
wonderful
move to the
session.
next question.
Yes, and he's asking, do you think the punishment for abusers is enough to derail them from the act? Or do you think more should be done aside straight up punishing the offenders, such as finding out the reason and helping them, as you said, there are reasons? Or what route do we take?
Well, so that question is, the chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken kind of thing. So the thing is, yes, there might be reasons why maybe the person has a challenge and all of that, but the law, there is the law, in law, they said there is no ignorance in law. So if you offend and it's being reported, then the law will take its course. While that law is taking its course, maybe for some of those offenses, they are offenses that you would have to go to the correctional facility, as it's called now, for. And within that correctional facility, you also get the opportunity to access some other form of help that can begin to help you reorientate yourself or the offender in that way, to know that, okay, domestic violence is not something to do, and it's a learned behavior that you can unlearn. Okay, so it's both ways, if I may say it that way. The person, if is able to access help, yes, would get the help to know that, okay, there are certain things he might have been exposed to that is sustaining that behavior that he has learned. But if he gets to the point where that situation is reported, the person would have to face the consequences of the law.
Another question from Dauda. He said, what is the difference between coerced sex through threat and coerced sex by force?
Okay. So I'm sure maybe somehow, whether by watching it on TV or and all of that, or maybe listening to news, maybe you would have heard incidences of gang rape. Maybe a lady that has been a group of boys or guys, we laid her on her way and then forced her, threatened her, maybe we pulled out a knife, gun or something, and forced her. So that's coerced sex with threats and all of that. By force, that can even happen between a husband and wife. So imagine that the wife is saying that she doesn't want to have sex, and the husband says that and forces her to. That's force. Even in a marital relationship, there should be mutual consent in terms of, and then more primarily when you're talking about, even the first, when you are talking about maybe someone that is yet an adult that is below 18, and then you have sex with that person without the person's consent. So in the eyes of the law, what the law says now, the Lagos state law, I dare say, the law that is guiding sex and gender-based violence says that for anybody that is under 18, even if you come and say that the person was eyeing you, was consenting, that is still a sexual abuse. It is categorized as long as that person is under the age of 18. So that can be forced sex. So even when you say the person is consenting, but that person is below 18, it is sexual abuse.
Have another question from Michael Jones. What strategic step can a woman take against economic violence, especially when the partner does that deliberately, knowing she is not educated to fight her right, and also because he is a law enforcing officer of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? He drops little or nothing at all at home for feeding, claiming always he has loans to settle at the office, and the family are not seeing what he did that requires him taking loans, as he claimed. What can this woman do in this situation? Because he refused to establish her in a business to support the family.
Okay, so that is something that that looks like a very typical home situation that you will find around. So that can be something that will be settled within a family kind of setting. Maybe the woman can report the man to his family members so that they can talk to him, or maybe call a family meeting of some sort to help her kind of mediate, so that they can prevail on the husband to either establish her or put finance and some form of economic empowerment by making sure that the home front needs are met, and then not being able to putting her in a state where she is kind of handicapped. So otherwise, if you are going to now step it up to maybe the state level, that might even be causing more problems in terms of maybe going to report to the welfare, and the reporting to welfare really is, if we still within the man and the woman, they are married, then it's still going to be a family resolution kind of thing. So, but in the situation where they are separated, or maybe they are divorced or something, then the woman will be pressing through the customary courts to be able to, is it customary court of magistrates or something, to get some form of empowerment, maybe for the children, upkeep, and all of that. But primarily, I think the woman should maybe speak to people that are close to him, family members of the man, to, have a discussion and get him to see the reason for him to do his rightful duties of supporting his family, of making provisions, and then stop abusing the woman by, denying her of all the things she needs to have to support the family. I hope I've been able to answer that question. It's a very tricky kind of question, but there are certain limits or limitations that that is hanging around that question in terms of what the woman can, and then the woman can also look for ways to empower herself. Maybe she wants to learn a skill and then start to earn some money for herself so that she's able to have some form of empowerment. And then, that will also reduce her having to depend solely on the man. She would then be empowered to be able to take care of the needs. I mean, our own needs, the needs of the children, maybe take care of some of the home front, and then that will resolve a lot of the matter too.
Okay. I have another question from Mandy. What is the correlation between mental health, illness, and gender-based violence?
Okay. So gender-based violence can trigger mental health conditions. So someone was mentioning while I was making presentation and someone was talking, someone mentioned post-traumatic stress disorder. So you have a situation where someone has been abused sexually and all of that. The person is traumatized, and then that trauma might not go away for a long time. So that kind of person can begin to have flashbacks and, can have low self-esteem, it can affect the person in various and myriads of ways. It can affect how the person will be able to relate maybe with male colleagues or people that are just male generally. So it can affect in very strong ways with the mental health, and then it can make that person, to affect the person emotionally. And like I mentioned, it can be a post-traumatic stress disorder. The person can have that's already in the mental health space. The person can also have other forms. The person can even, develop other forms of mental health conditions like depression. And one of the symptoms or that can happen to someone that is having a depressive illness is that they can be suicidal. They can become suicidal. Not only having the suicide thoughts, that so okay, they've been abused, someone has taken away their pride and all of that. They can become suicidal and then even go and carry out the act of suicide and commit that suicide act and they die. So there's a very strong link between gender-based violence, and then mental health conditions. Thank you.
Okay. Have another question from Ayo. He said, do men also go through this domestic violence? If yes, how can we stop it for men?
Okay. Yes, like I mentioned while I was making during the session, that yes, there are some reported cases of men also being abused by their wives or partner, but the numbers are not. They are very minimal compared to the other way. And you know, so like we mentioned for the women, men to women, in terms of abuse or violence, it's the same thing for the woman that is also abusing. So you would imagine that maybe that person has a bigger figure and all of that, and then gets upset or angered over a situation, and then descends on the man. It might also be stress induced, just the same way we have mentioned for a man to a woman. There should be other ways of learning how to cope for the woman. And then, well, the man that is being abused, I mean, can also report it. And then, the same thing applies. If it is reported and the law will apply, the law, does not say because someone is a woman and is abusing a man, the law will not take its course. It will take its course. Okay, so I think it's the same way. And then the man maybe wants to also, if possible, see a reason for maybe both of them to seek help, maybe go for counseling and all of that, things that can help resolve whatever issue the woman is having, that is the abuser. And then that will help to resolve whatever the issue that the man is also going through.
Okay, thank you so much. We have another question from Mendy. He said, in Nigeria, we are so much attached to our faith. How can you navigate through a domestic violence case where the survivor is trusting God to change the situation, or the cleric has instructed them to withdraw the case, bearing in mind the survivor-centered approach?
Bearing in mind what? I didn't hear the last part.
The survivor-centered approach.
Oh, okay. So, and I mean, it's something that is also a discussion that has started and then came to, a crescendo when one gospel artist recently, not too recently or not too long ago, lost her life because she was being violated and assaulted by her husband. So one of the things that, it doesn't say that because you are a Christian or a faithful, devoted, that you should not pay attention to things like violence. In fact, I mean, if such a case has been reported to the pastor or the imam, as the case may be, and then no action is being taken, or is like the question says that the person has been instructed to withdraw whatever it is from where I don't even know. Maybe the person has gone to report officially to the police or and all of that. The major thing, first of all, in terms of using the survival approach is that the person that is being violated is the one that is experiencing the act. So he or she particularly is the one that knows the depth and how bad the situation is. So my candid response would be that the person should not, cover it up and, act under some situation or advice that she knows is detrimental to her life. Because it's also possible that when the woman or man, or particularly the woman, is discussing the situation with the pastor or imam, is not telling the depth of how much she is going through, which will be that, so it will then necessitate the advice that, you can hang in there. Or if the situation is really bad, don't keep quiet, and make the person, the man of God, or that you're talking to, realize that this is something that can take your life. And so they know that, it's not something that is just, you have to stay there until there is an incident that everybody will now be talking and saying that, we didn't know that it was this bad. We didn't know that, so the individual that is going through that violent behavior and, situation should be the one to be able to either communicate properly what she is going through and then have to take that decision. When you are talking about the decision about whether to stay or leave, some of these decisions are between that individual and her God. Really, you can seek opinion from your pastor, and then if you are not even telling your pastor how serious the situation is, he might advise you, don't. But if you know that the situation is very bad, you have to take that decision to save your own life. And then if because you have the right to take a decision as to what is best for you at that time. So I believe that the individual has the right to take a decision because they know the depth of what they are going through and how bad the situation have gone, which they might not be able to tell other people. Okay.
Okay, so we'll take one more question and I'll tell all participants, I'll advise participants to ensure that they drop other questions on the WUVA platform. You can drop your questions. You can still link with the speaker on the WUVA app. Please bear with us, drop your questions there. We have one more question, and the question is, can domestic violence be managed? From Florence, can domestic violence be managed?
Okay. Well, yes, it can be managed if, the people in the situation is particularly the abuser is ready to seek help and also be able to unlearn the behavior, the violent behavior, and then seek other ways of being able to manage whatever it is that they're going through or whatever they've experienced while growing up. But, be that as it may, it might also be too late in terms of the person that has been abused. Maybe the person had already taken a decision to leave that relationship, or even in extreme cases, and maybe the person has passed and all of that. So for the abuser, if they are ready to and they're able to take the bull by the horn to seek help, to first accept that there is a problem, that they have a problem in terms of the violent behavior that they are exhibiting, and know that it is a problem, and that problem has a solution, that they can get help, they can seek help, and they go right ahead, not just accepting, but going right ahead to seek the help that is available, and then going through that form of intervention to help them correct that maladaptive behavior, and then they start to gradually get back to an acceptable form of behavior that will be beneficial to themselves first, and then other people that they're in a relationship with, just like that frame that I showed, from the individual to the relationship that they would have, into the community, then to the larger society. So it starts with that individual that is the abuser, that is the violent person, recognizing that they have a problem, they have a challenge, and this problem, they need to seek help, and they go to get that help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. This session was indeed very interesting. Thank you so much. It was indeed very interesting. And thank you to our participants. The poll is ready. Please ensure to respond to the poll that will be on your screen, as your feedbacks are important to us. Ensure to respond to the poll that will be on your screen. Don't forget, you can always connect with our speaker on the Woover app, and you can ask questions there. Don't forget to do that. Our second session is starting very soon. In few minutes, please stay tuned, don't move. It's also a very interesting session, and we'll be up very soon. Thank you so much, sir, for tuning in. Thank you so much for this wonderful session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Oh, before you go, please, we would like to take a group picture with you. We'd like to take a group picture with you before you leave. So participants, turn on your videos.
Oh, okay.
Yes, as we take a group picture with you. Okay, our team will be taking the picture now. Okay, thank you. Have a wonderful day.